Exactly 30 days remained before the global catastrophe. I opened my eyes in the middle of the night, the acrid smell of burning flesh still lingering in my nose from the final moment of my previous life. 1 second earlier, my own brother, Lin Hao, the person I had depended on more than anyone, had shoved me beneath the claws of a mutated beast. I watched him activate the system that should have belonged to me and survive through endless supplies and enhancement abilities. The pain still seemed lodged in my chest. But when I looked at my hands, there were no wounds. Beneath me lay the familiar sheets of my bedroom. I had been reborn 1 month before the apocalypse, on the very day the mysterious system first appeared. An ice-blue crystal pendant rested on the bedside table. It was supposed to serve as the medium for binding the system. In my previous life, I had shown it to Lin Hao immediately, pretending to inspect it for me. He bit his finger and forced a blood binding while I was unprepared, stealing the system outright. Afterward, he reversed the story and claimed he had found the pendant first. Our parents favored their eldest son and told me to stop fighting with my brother. I sat up and ran my fingers over the cold crystal. This time, I would not expose my greatest advantage voluntarily. A knock soon came at the door. "Su Wan, are you awake?" Lin Hao called. "I saw light coming from your room. Did you find something?" I suppressed my emotions and opened the door. Lin Hao stood outside with our parents behind him. He had already persuaded them, and all three immediately searched the room with their eyes. "I don't know what light you mean." I tried to close the door, but Lin Hao braced one hand against the frame and forced his way inside. "Stop pretending. I clearly saw blue light float out of your room. If you found something valuable, bring it out and share it with the family." His gaze locked on the bedside table. He strode over and grabbed the pendant before I could stop him. "This is it." Our parents crowded around. Mother began persuading me. Wan, your brother has never had much luck. Why don't you give this to him? You're the younger sister. It's natural for you to yield to your brother." Father agreed. "We're family. Why argue? If your brother becomes successful one day, he won't forget you." The words were identical to those from my previous life. Back then, I had cried and fought to recover the pendant, only to be called immature and selfish. This time, I remained calm. Lin Hao bit his fingertip eagerly and let blood fall onto the crystal. No brilliant system activation followed. The pendant flickered once, then returned to silence. He frowned and squeezed more blood from his finger. Nothing happened. "What's wrong? Why won't it activate?" "Su Wan, did you tamper with it?" "I did nothing." I extended my hand. "Give it back. Perhaps it simply doesn't belong to you." He stepped away and clenched it more tightly. "It appeared in your room, so part of it belongs to me. I'll keep it and study it. Once I understand what it does, we can discuss it." He was certain it was a treasure and refused to return it. Our parents supported him and told me to let him keep it temporarily. I stopped arguing. A faint smile touched my lips as I watched him put the pendant in his pocket. None of them knew that the pendant had never been the true vessel of the system. It was only an outer shell designed to confuse outsiders. The genuine spatial core had already merged with me at the instant I awakened after rebirth. In my previous life, the pendant had functioned as a key. When Lin Hao interrupted the binding process by force, he accidentally separated the core from the crystal. After rebirth, that core fused directly with my soul, leaving the pendant as nothing more than an attractive shell. Lin Hao had stolen a useless ornament and believed he had seized the greatest opportunity of the apocalypse. Pretending to be defeated, I lowered my head and let them leave. The instant the bedroom door closed, my consciousness sank inward. An immense independent space floated within my soul. It was clean, empty, and nearly a kilometer wide in both directions. Time flowed at the same rate as the outside world. The air remained stable, and it could store any object, even living creatures. This was my true advantage. 30 days remained. Enough time to prepare. In my previous life, I had possessed nothing and been slaughtered at another person's convenience. Now, with an enormous storage space, I would reclaim everything owed to me and watch Lin Hao and our biased family descend into despair through their own choices. I opened my phone and reviewed all assets in my name. A small apartment our parents had bought years ago, savings, and several modest investments. Selling everything would provide the first funds for preparation. I contacted a real estate agent and requested an expedited sale. I did not care about accepting a slightly lower price as long as the full payment arrived quickly. From the next room, Lin Hao's frustrated voice continued. He soaked the pendant in water, struck it, added more blood, searched online, asked friends, and tried every ridiculous activation method he could find. The blue crystal remained inert, leaning against my door. I listened to his useless effort. The show had only begun. The agent worked efficiently. In 3 days, my apartment sold and the full payment reached my account. After cashing out my investments and adding years of personal savings, I had nearly 2.7 million yuan in startup funds. I did not remain at home. Lin Hao watched me constantly and tried to discover how the pendant worked. Our parents also questioned me indirectly. If I stayed, they would eventually notice that something was wrong. Claiming I was taking a trip, I packed lightly and moved into a newly completed penthouse duplex in the city center. I rented it for a high short-term price. It occupied the top 2 floors, had a private terrace, only one residence above and below, strict security, and a wide field of view. It would make an excellent apocalypse shelter. The interior walls, however, were too weak to resist mutated creatures later in the disaster. I hired a construction team that day and required the entire property to be reinforced within 7 days. Thick alloy plates were added to the exterior walls. Every window was replaced with double-layer bullet-resistant, blast-resistant glass. A custom heavy security door was installed. The terrace received an enclosed alloy canopy with concealed firing ports. Water and electrical lines were rebuilt. An independent solar power system and large battery bank were added, and the interior was equipped with water purification, a temperature-controlled cold room, and filtered air circulation. The contractors began immediately. I provided meals and temporary lodging and required strict confidentiality, telling outsiders only that I was building a private studio. Supply procurement began at the same time. I contacted dozens of sellers and placed staggered orders. Rice, flour, compressed biscuits, canned food, freeze-dried meals, drinking water, and purification tablets filled the lists. Medicine was essential. Wound dressings, antibiotics, hemostatic agents, fever reducers, and medication for chronic conditions. I also ordered tools, fuel, lubricant, rope, crowbars, night vision equipment, stab-resistant clothing, and protective helmets. Every delivery was scheduled for nighttime and brought to the penthouse in separate batches. Once the workers left, I quietly transferred the goods into my internal space, leaving only a small visible stockpile as camouflage. On the 5th day, the doorbell rang. The monitor showed Lin Hao outside with a dark expression. "Su Wan, what are you hiding here? You don't answer calls or messages." The moment I opened the door, he entered without permission and looked around. His eyes stopped on the steel plates being installed. "You spent this much money reinforcing a home because you knew a disaster was coming, didn't you? You've been hiding the pendant's secret from me." I set down the supply list. "I don't know what you mean. I intend to live here long term, so I'm renovating." He pulled out the pendant and slammed it onto the table. "Stop pretending. It appeared in your room. You must know how to use it. I've tried everything, and it still won't activate. You're hiding something. Perhaps it won't activate because it is only ordinary jewelry." "Jewelry? Impossible. I saw blue light that night." He grabbed my wrist. "Tell me the method, or don't blame me for what happens. The apocalypse is coming. We need this opportunity to survive." I pulled free. "You decided it was an opportunity. I never said it possessed any power. If you want answers, continue studying it yourself." The argument drew the construction workers' attention. Unable to attack me in front of witnesses, Lin Hao suppressed his anger. He stared at the building materials and sensed that my preparations were far larger than I admitted. "How much food and equipment have you bought? I enjoy stockpiling things." He did not believe me. "Su Wan, we are siblings. Don't force me. When the apocalypse arrives, one person cannot defend so many supplies. Tell me the method, and we can work together." "No." I ordered him to leave. Before departing, He secretly installed a miniature camera in a corner of the hallway to monitor deliveries and anyone entering the penthouse. My own surveillance system recorded the entire act. I saved the footage but left his device in place. I knew his personality. If he could not obtain the answer directly, he would continue spying and would eventually bring others to seize my resources. After he left, I expanded the procurement plan. In addition to survival necessities, I purchased large quantities of vegetable seeds and young poultry. The internal space could sustain living organisms and support long-term cultivation, making self-sufficiency possible. A shipment of fresh meat arrived that night. Lin Hao's hallway camera recorded the delivery. Once the workers left, I transferred everything into the space, leaving only a few items in visible freezers. As expected, he sent a message later asking indirectly why I was purchasing so much food. I ignored it. 23 days remained. Reinforcement continued, and supplies flowed steadily into the space. Lin Hao remained trapped in his obsession, wasting time and money on crystal appraisals while the most valuable preparation period disappeared. Standing on the terrace, I looked over the city lights. Once disaster arrived, the prosperous streets would become ruins. Lin Hao believed he had stolen the greatest chance of the age. In reality, he held a worthless decoration. The true power had never left my hands. The board for revenge was slowly being set. By the 10th day of construction, the alloy wall reinforcement and blast-resistant doors and windows were nearly complete. The penthouse had become a small fortress. The steady arrival of building materials and nighttime deliveries eventually attracted the attention of the other top-floor residents. Only 2 households lived nearby, an elderly man alone and a young married couple. Normally, we did not interfere with one another, but repeated trucks, workers, and heavy steel panels were impossible to ignore. One afternoon, after I received a shipment of medical supplies, the woman from the young couple approached me. "You've been renovating constantly. What are all these steel plates for?" "I'm building a secure studio for valuable collectibles." She studied me, made a little conversation, and left. I knew the explanation would work only temporarily. Rumors would spread. 2 days later, people were already speculating that I traded jewelry or had dangerous enemies. The rumors reached Lin Hao. This time, he returned with our parents. The 3 stood outside the security door. Mother began with accusation. "Su Wan, why didn't you tell the family about such a major renovation? You must have saved a lot of money to spend this much." Father added, "Your brother has spent everything trying to identify the pendant. Since you have money, give him some help." Lin Hao leaned against the wall. "I know you've stored a huge amount of supplies. Stop hiding it. The disaster is getting closer. And you cannot defend all of this alone. Give us part of the stockpile and tell me how to activate the pendant. We'll survive as a family. I have no surplus. The renovation used nearly everything. I did not open the door." "You're lying." Delivery drivers saw boxes of food and medicine coming upstairs. He raised his voice so the neighbors could hear. "We're family. Aren't you ashamed of being this selfish?" The nearby doors opened. Seeing an audience, he performed the role of the injured brother. "My sister found a strange crystal. I only wanted to study it together, but she treated me like an enemy. Now she has secretly accumulated supplies and refuses even to discuss things with her family." Several neighbors, unaware of the facts, encouraged us to compromise. Mother began crying. "We worked so hard to raise you. How can you care only about yourself?" I opened the door and played the recording of Lin Hao installing the hidden camera. A few days ago, he placed a surveillance device in the hallway to monitor my movements. If he wants a conversation, spying is unnecessary. If the harassment continues, I will report it and submit this footage. The image was clear. The neighbors reacted with shock, and Lin Hao's face changed. "I was worried about your safety. Installing a camera without permission violates privacy. The law does not accept that excuse." I looked at all 3. "I have no supplies or information for you. Continue spreading rumors or harassing me, and I will call the police." The neighbors began telling Lin Hao to stop. Having failed to gain sympathy and instead exposed himself as a spy, the family withdrew in embarrassment. The confrontation ended. But a new danger remained. Everyone now knew that I had stored supplies. During ordinary times, that knowledge produced only gossip. After society collapsed, it could bring endless attacks. I changed the plan immediately. All future deliveries would arrive after midnight, and drivers would be required to leave without delay. Light-blocking panels were added to the terrace enclosure so no one could see inside. Within the storage space, I arranged weapons and tools, crossbows, alloy knives, high-pressure protective equipment, and reinforced armor. I would not attack without cause, but I would be able to defend myself. Lin Hao did not give up after the failed confrontation. He spread rumors among relatives, describing me as antisocial, selfish, and unwilling to help my family despite possessing an unknown treasure. Several relatives called to lecture me. I ended every call immediately. He spent large amounts of money and still found no way to activate the pendant. In his anxiety, he began believing baseless rumors online and purchased a few random supplies. But most of his money was already gone, and his stockpile was negligible. He continued insisting that the pendant contained overwhelming power and would awaken once the apocalypse began. He never realized that he had been walking in the wrong direction from the very beginning. 13 days remained. The clouds above the city grew abnormally dark. Temperatures swung sharply between day and night, and many people reported dizziness and weakness. Online discussions about climate abnormalities began spreading. The disaster was approaching. I sealed the penthouse and activated every security camera. Rumors, family pressure, and covert surveillance were only the opening acts. Once social order collapsed, every false mask would be torn away. Lin Hao had devoted himself to a useless ornament. The moment he understood the truth would be the beginning of his real despair. The day of the global catastrophe arrived without an earth-shaking explosion. At 7 in the morning, gray-black fog suddenly covered the sky and erased the sun. Communication signals flickered, and internet connections repeatedly failed. Half an hour later, a citywide blackout struck, and the water supply stopped. Screams rose from the streets as chaos erupted without warning. The global fog disaster had begun. Unknown particles drifting through the air gradually corroded the human body. People with weaker constitutions developed fevers and lost consciousness. Some transformed into irrational, deformed infected creatures. From the enclosed terrace, I looked through bullet-resistant glass at the streets below. Traffic had collapsed. Vehicles struck one another. Crowds fled in every direction, and the first stiff-moving infected figures were already appearing. Only a small emergency stockpile remained visible inside the apartment. The true supplies were stored within my internal space. I put on a respirator and activated the filtered air system, sealing out the fog. Then someone began pounding the security door. Su Wan, open up. The disaster is here, and the pendant still won't respond. You know how to activate it. Lin Hao shouted. Our parents' frightened voices accompanied his repeated kicks. The monitor showed Lin Hao disheveled and gripping the blue pendant. Our parents stood behind him in panic. They had prepared almost nothing beyond a few cases of instant noodles. Once the water and electricity stopped, fear overwhelmed them. Su Wan, we know you prepared everything. Take us in. Mother pleaded. Lin Hao kicked the door again. There is no system in the pendant. You knew that, didn't you? You deliberately watched me waste my time. Open the door and tell me how to survive. I activated the hallway intercom. You took the pendant by force. No one made that choice for you. If it cannot activate, that is your responsibility. You knew it was fake and tricked me. His face twisted. If you don't open the door, I'll shout through the building and tell everyone you have a massive stockpile. Once they all come upstairs, none of us will live peacefully. Desperation had pushed him to threaten me with exposure. Other residents opened their doors to watch. After the fog appeared, everyone was terrified, and supplies had become the most valuable thing in the building. If Lin Hao spread the news aggressively, a crowd could attack the penthouse. I watched the cameras. The young couple and the elderly neighbor stood nearby, unease in their eyes. I will provide enough food and water for 3 days. Stop threatening me, and I'll pass it through a narrow opening. You will not live inside this apartment. After weighing the offer, Lin Hao agreed. I opened the door only a few centimeters and passed out cases of water and compressed biscuits. He snatched them but refused to leave. His gaze remained fixed on the heavy door, calculating whether he could force it open. You can't be this cruel. The apocalypse is here, and infected creatures are everywhere. Let us hide inside. The agreement was for temporary supplies, not shelter. I began closing the gap. He thrust an arm into it and pushed with all his strength. The blast-resistant door was far too heavy to move. Don't force me, he screamed, raising the pendant. It appeared in your room, so the real power must be inside you. You were reborn, weren't you? You know what is going to happen. Give me your ability. The memory of my previous death flashed through my mind. The same twisted face shoving me toward the mutated beast. You exhausted yourself stealing the pendant because you believed it held the greatest opportunity in the apocalypse, I said with a faint smile. Unfortunately, you stole only the shell. I raised one hand. A trace of pale blue light flickered across my palm, the pulse of the spatial core. It vanished instantly, brief enough for others to question whether they had seen it. Lin Hao's pupils contracted. At last, he understood. The pendant was only an outer casing. The true opportunity had never been inside the crystal. He had spent time, money, and effort fighting for something useless. Despair swallowed him. He staggered backward, and the pendant fell to the hallway floor. No, that's impossible. Our parents stared at him in shock. They had placed every hope in the crystal. You insisted on taking it and refused to listen to anyone. This is the outcome you chose. I closed the door and engaged every lock. An argument exploded outside. Our parents blamed Lin Hao for acting recklessly and missing the genuine opportunity. He screamed that they had all pressured me together and accused me of concealing the truth. The neighbors heard enough to understand that I possessed an unusual power. Several began whispering about how to ask for protection. I cut off the intercom and returned inside. This was only the first blow. Lin Hao's fantasy of becoming powerful overnight had shattered. He had no preparation, few supplies, and no system. The pressure of survival would grind away what remained of him. In the storage area, I summoned fresh fruit and vegetables from my space. I possessed abundant resources, a secure fortress, and a unique spatial ability, everything necessary to live. Outside, my family would confront the reality they had created. 3 days of food would not last long. The hallway was unsafe, and infected creatures would continue searching for living prey. Revenge did not require me to attack them. I only needed to protect what belonged to me and let them bear the consequences of their own choices. The heavy door blocked their argument but could not eliminate the danger in the building. Fog continued covering the city. Infected creatures wandered around the lower floors, and screams echoed from below. Survivors hid wherever they could, desperate for safety. Lin Hao and our parents remained on the top floor landing. They guarded the stairs and survived on the small amount I had given them. Lin Hao still picked up the crystal and repeatedly tested it with blood and friction, begging for a miracle that never came. The young couple next door knocked on my door. We heard what happened. We won't force you to take us in. Could we trade for food and water? We still have cash and jewelry. Cash was losing value quickly, but precious metals still had some exchange value. After considering it, I agreed to a small transaction. I opened a narrow gap, confirmed they carried no weapons, accepted a gold necklace and watch, and passed out canned food and water. They thanked me and returned home. Lin Hao had watched everything. Greed immediately stirred in him, and he intercepted the couple. You want to trade valuables with Su Wan? Don't waste them. She is selfish and won't continue trading. We should work together and open her door. There are enough supplies inside for all of us. The couple hesitated. They were tempted by the stockpile, but the reinforced door would be difficult to breach, and they feared the strange power I had shown. We can't break that door. It's too dangerous, the woman said. There will be an opportunity if we wait. Lin Hao continued persuading them and approached the elderly neighbor. If we join forces, we won't have to worry about food again. The old man remained silent. My exterior cameras recorded every word. Lin Hao had begun recruiting neighbors for an attack. With law and social restraint weakening, prolonged hunger could push them to violence. I did not confront them immediately. Instead, I strengthened the defenses. A crossbow was placed in a concealed position near the entrance. Protective grills were added to every ventilation duct, and all camera feeds remained on the interior screens. That evening, disaster reached the top floor. Several survivors fled upward from the lower levels with 3 fast-moving first-stage infected creatures behind them. Their howls carried up the stairwell, and panic seized everyone outside. The creatures soon reached the final flight. Lin Hao went pale and tried to block the stairs with the others. He held only a damaged steel pipe, nowhere near enough to fight them. In panic, he turned and pounded my door. Su Wan, open up. They're coming. Let us hide inside. Our parents and the neighboring couple joined the pleading. I watched the screens. The 3 creatures were strong enough to endanger everyone if they reached the landing. I will not open the door. Use the stairwell corner as a choke point and fight together. We can't stop them. You can't watch us die. Lin Hao kicked the door. You will have to rely on yourselves. He turned to the neighbors. See? She is willing to watch all of us die. Instead of waiting, we should ram the door together. If we get inside, we'll survive. Desperation weakened their judgment. The couple exchanged a look and joined him. They rushed the blast-resistant door together. The panel did not move. Human strength could not defeat the alloy structure. While they were attacking it, the infected creatures rounded the corner. Everyone spun around and fought for their lives. The elderly man failed to evade one creature and was grabbed by the arm. He screamed. Lin Hao immediately retreated and made no attempt to help. The young couple summoned their courage and used clubs to drive the creature back. I watched from behind the door and did not intervene. They had chosen to join a conspiracy against my shelter, and now they faced the danger outside it. After a violent struggle, they managed to push the infected creatures down the stairs. Every survivor on the landing was exhausted and injured. Lin Hao turned toward my door with deeper hatred. You watched us nearly die and still refused to open up. This isn't over. You planned to force your way into my home first. I answered through the intercom. I have no reason to admit people who intend to rob me. Fair trade is possible. Violent seizure will be met with force. The incident divided the residents. The young couple began reconsidering the attack, while Lin Hao continued waiting for another opportunity. I returned to the storage space and reviewed the inventory. Food and medicine were abundant, and crops could be grown inside. As long as the entrance held, I could survive for years. Outside, supplies were disappearing quickly. Fear and conflict would only increase. Lin Hao had thrown away the only opportunity he believed he possessed, and now he created new dangers in the hallway. His suffering had barely begun. 3 days passed. The supplies I had given the family were gone. Everyone on the landing was hungry, and only a few bottles of water remained. Anxiety thickened. The young couple tried to trade with me again. They gathered their remaining jewelry and a luxury watch. This is everything valuable we have. We hope it can buy a week of food and water. We promise we won't participate in Lin Hao's plans again. The cameras showed no hidden weapons. I opened the narrow exchange slot, inspected the items, and provided cans, water, and compressed biscuits. They returned to their doorway and divided the supplies carefully. Lin Hao saw them and hurried over. You still had valuables. Why won't you share the food with us? We're all trapped on the same floor. We should help one another. The husband refused. We traded everything we own for this. We suggested trading before, and you rejected it. You can't be so selfish. Lin Hao reached for the package. A struggle began. His parents joined him, trying to pressure the couple into surrendering part of the food. The elderly man watched from a distance. Several cans fell to the floor. Lin Hao lunged for them, and the husband fought him back. The wife protected the water, retreated into their apartment, and locked the door. After failing to steal the supplies, Lin Hao returned to my entrance and pounded it furiously. You're deliberately turning us against one another. You trade with them but refuse to sell to us. Trade requires something both sides value. You have nothing to exchange. If you find medicine, intact tools, or useful information, I will consider them. He had nothing. Humiliation turned into anger. You're doing this to punish us. The opportunity should have belonged to you. But even if I failed to activate it, we are siblings. You have to support us. You did not remember that bond when you stole the pendant. There is no reason to discuss it now. The word struck where he was weakest. He could not answer and left in fury. Back in their corner of the hallway, our parents began blaming one another. Mother accused Lin Hao of being too impulsive and said that if he had not seized the pendant, the family might not be starving now. Father sighed repeatedly about the opportunity they could have used together. The resentment accumulated over many days finally exploded. Don't blame everything on me, Lin Hao shouted. Both of you told me to take it. Now that things went wrong, you're putting all the responsibility on me. We told you to discuss it. You were the one who grabbed it by force. The three turned on one another. Hunger, desperation, and regret tore apart the family loyalty they had once claimed was sacred. I watched through the cameras. In my previous life, they had acted together to send me to my death. In this life, I did not need to attack them. The apocalypse was dismantling them from within. When the argument ended, silence returned. Mother leaned weakly against the wall. Maybe we should apologize properly and beg Su-won. We're still family. She may not let us die. After a long silence, Lin Hao agreed. They returned to my door with lowered voices. Wan, we were wrong. We were greedy. We shouldn't have taken the pendant or threatened you. Please give us something to eat. We promise we won't cause trouble again. The cameras showed their false humility clearly. Resentment and calculation still remained in Lin Hao's eyes. The apology was a temporary tactic. Once his strength returned, he would scheme again. I will provide a small amount once. In exchange, you will stop inciting the neighbors and stop harassing me. I passed out a few biscuits and 2 bottles of water. The three retreated quickly and ate. As soon as the hunger eased, calculation returned to Lin Hao's expression. Once we recover, we'll gather the others and think of another method. She has limitless supplies. We can't survive forever on charity. Our parents did not object. Their apology had been only a pause in the conflict. I turned off that camera feed. A small act of mercy would not change them. As long as they intended to seize what was mine, the danger would remain. I began planning an outside supply run. Remaining sealed indoors forever was not a sustainable strategy. Warehouses and large stores still contained valuable resources, and my space allowed me to collect them in bulk. Before dawn the next day, the fog briefly thinned. Wearing full protective gear and carrying weapons, I prepared to leave through the top-floor emergency passage. The hallway cameras showed Lin Hao and the others asleep from exhaustion. I opened the side exit silently and stepped into the ruined city. Abandoned vehicles and debris covered the streets. Deformed infected creatures wandered through gray fog, their low growls echoing between buildings. Visibility was less than 50 meters. I activated night vision lenses beneath my respirator and moved quickly through the shadows. My destination was a large warehouse supermarket 3 kilometers away. The disaster had begun so suddenly that its storage rooms were likely still full. I avoided major clusters and used the crossbow to eliminate isolated first-stage infected creatures. The weapon was nearly silent and would not attract distant threats. Half an hour later, I reached the supermarket. Its glass entrance had shattered, and several survivors were already searching inside. I circled cautiously toward the enclosed warehouse at the rear. The rolling door was half open. Packaged food, water, household goods, and cleaning supplies filled the interior. After confirming the area was safe, I opened it and transferred the stock into my space. Rice, instant noodles, frozen food, paper products, and hygiene supplies disappeared in an orderly stream, while enormous room remained inside. An argument sounded nearby. I crouched behind shelves and looked through a gap. Lin Hao and our parents had somehow reached the same commercial district. They carried only one steel pipe and moved fearfully without proper protection. After struggling to find a small box of bread, they were stopped by 3 survivors carrying knives. Hand over the box, or you're not leaving, one of the men said. Lin Hao gripped the pipe but did not dare fight 3 armed opponents. Mother retreated in terror. Father attempted to negotiate and was shoved aside. Enough talking. Give us the food or take a beating. Then Lin Hao saw me behind the shelves. Su Wan. Help us. He shouted. Every head turned toward my hiding place. His first instinct had not been to escape. It had been to expose me and drag me into the conflict. He knew I possessed better equipment and hoped the men would target me instead. Since concealment was already lost, I stepped into view. I wore full protective gear with a crossbow on my back. The raider's eyes lit up. Another survivor, and she looks well prepared. She must be carrying something valuable. They abandoned Lin Hao's family and moved toward me. A trace of anticipation appeared at the corner of Lin Hao's mouth. He wanted us to injure one another so he could take whatever remained. If you try to steal from me, you accept the consequences. I released the crossbow's safety and aimed at the leader. He laughed and continued approaching. What threat is one crossbow? Hand over the supplies. And we won't hurt you. I pulled the trigger. The bolt cut across his shoulder and left a line of blood. Pain stopped him immediately. Don't be reckless. I do not want to injure anyone, but I will not show mercy to someone who attacks me. I backed toward the shelves, protecting my escape route. The three men exchanged uncertain looks. A crossbow could kill at this distance, and none wanted to be first. Then a large chorus of infected growls came from outside. The argument had attracted more than a dozen creatures toward the warehouse. The raiders cursed and fled through a side exit. Lin Hao's family tried to follow them. Su Wan, come with us. They're almost here. Lin Hao reached toward me. We go separately. I withdrew through another passage. The family ran in the direction of the raiders. Without weapons or discipline, they disturbed two infected creatures, which pursued them closely. From a corner, I watched briefly. Lin Hao sprinted ahead and left our slower parents behind. They screamed for him to help, but he never looked back. In my previous life, he had sacrificed me to save himself. Now, when danger arrived, he abandoned even the parents who had always favored him. I turned away and returned to the building along my planned route. Back at the penthouse, I secured every access point and reviewed the successful supply run. Soon, someone knocked frantically. Lin Hao had escaped and returned first. Su Wan, open the door. There were infected creatures everywhere. Mom and Dad are still trapped in the shopping district. Your space can carry supplies. Come with me and save them. You were the one who abandoned them. I answered through the intercom. If you want to attempt a rescue, do it yourself. We're siblings. You can't let them die. You did not remember that bond when you pushed me under a mutated beast. I ended the connection. He knocked for a long time before stopping. I did not know whether he would return to search for them. Without equipment or supplies, rescuing anyone from an infected commercial district would be nearly impossible. The apocalypse displayed human ugliness without disguise. Lin Hao would bear every one of his choices. For the next 2 days, the hallway remained quiet. Lin Hao left to search for our parents and returned alone late at night. He collapsed in the corner, exhausted and defeated. His search had clearly failed, and our parents were likely dead. He did not immediately harass me. Repeated blows had shattered his confidence. The pendant he stole was useless. He had wasted the preparation period, exhausted his supplies, abandoned our parents, and lost every source of support. But despair did not produce self-reflection. It produced deeper hatred toward me. On the third morning, he knocked again. His voice was no longer loud. Su Wan, I know you hate me. I don't want to fight. Let me stay in the corner of the hallway. I won't disturb you. I can search for supplies and trade everything useful to you. He sounded sincere, but the camera showed a steel pipe hidden behind his back. His surrender was another attempt to get close enough to attack the door. You may remain in the hallway, but you will not approach the entrance. If you damage the lock, I will respond with force. I pretended to accept and watched. For several days, Lin Hao behaved. He went outside to search and sometimes returned with a little food. When he found medicine or intact tools, he left them by the door to trade. The surface remained peaceful. Then the cameras caught him meeting 4 aggressive male survivors downstairs. All were short on supplies. They planned together in secret. Lin Hao intended to lure me out. One evening, he called through the door. Su Wan, I found an intact fuel-powered off-road vehicle downstairs. The tank is more than half full. I can't move it alone. If you come with me, you can keep the vehicle. I only want some food. The vehicle would have been useful, but the offer was obviously a trap. The 4 men were waiting below and would attack as soon as I left the shelter. Bring the key to the door. I'll inspect the vehicle and pay once I confirm its condition. He hesitated. The key is inside the vehicle. You need to see it yourself in case there is a mechanical problem. Those are my terms. Otherwise, there is no trade. Because I refused to step outside, the trap failed. Several days later, the fog thickened significantly, and second-stage infected creatures began appearing. They were faster and stronger, and ordinary clubs could barely harm them. Many survivors who went outside never returned. Lin Hao reduced his trips, and the 4 accomplices lost patience. Their whispered discussions were captured clearly. We can't keep waiting. Food is almost gone. Break the public water pipe outside her door. When the leak enters, she'll have to open up and repair it, or burn something and smoke her out. Lin Hao rejected the fire. The apartment is sealed too well. Smoke may not enter. If the building catches fire, we lose our shelter too. Damage the water line first. That night, they smashed the branch pipe in the hallway. Water spread across the floor and began seeping beneath my door. I understood the plan and did not open it. The apartment had an independent water system and did not depend on the public pipes. I activated drainage equipment and removed the small amount that entered. By morning, the hallway was flooded, but I had never appeared. The men became furious. She doesn't care about the leak. She prepared for everything. Lin Hao's face darkened. Every trap had failed. The dream he built around the pendant was gone, and no scheme could defeat the fortress I had constructed. Some accomplices wanted to leave the building and search elsewhere, but Lin Hao refused. One last attempt. During the thickest fog at midnight, we cut through the door lock. They began searching for metal cutting tools. I watched the preparations and placed the crossbow and defensive knife within reach. The ventilation barriers were reinforced again. The final confrontation was approaching. At midnight, the fog reached its greatest density. Metal scraped loudly in the hallway. Lin Hao and 4 accomplices used improvised cutting equipment on the outer lock, sending sparks across the floor. The alloy mechanism yielded slowly. They worked in shifts without stopping. I observed from behind the door. Multiple internal locking bars would prevent entry even if the first layer failed. After nearly an hour, the outer hardware was damaged, but the inner locks remained secure. This door is too strong, one man complained. We won't open it before morning. Keep going, Lin Hao insisted. Once it opens, the supplies inside will keep us alive for years. Then infected growls rose from below. The cutting noise had attracted a large group of creatures up the stairwell. They're coming, someone shouted. The men were trapped between an unbreakable door and the advancing infected. Don't stop, Lin Hao yelled. Open it now. His companions were no longer willing to die for the plan. If we stay, all of us will be killed. Forget the door and run. 2 dropped their tools and fled downstairs. The other 2 followed moments later. Lin Hao was left alone before the entrance. Footsteps and distorted growls drew closer. Dense silhouettes appeared at the far end of the dark hallway. Lin Hao trembled. He looked at the advancing infected. Then back at the sealed door he had failed to break. Knowing he no longer had time to escape, he began pounding desperately. Su Wan, open the door. Please. I know I was wrong. I'll never touch your supplies again. Save me. His screams came through the panel. I activated the intercom. When you pushed me toward a mutated beast in my previous life, you gave me no chance to beg. The ending before you now was built by every choice you made. I regret it. I shouldn't have taken the pendant or plotted against you. Give me one more chance. You were given chances. At the beginning, you could have chosen peaceful coexistence. In the hallway, you could have chosen fair trade. During the supply runs, you could have abandoned your obsession. Every time, you chose theft and manipulation. The infected reached him. He turned and swung the steel pipe with all his strength. But it could not stop the group. They dragged him down. His screams lasted only a few moments before silence returned. I switched off the intercom. There was no rush of celebration, only the calm of something finally concluded. Hatred that had lasted across an entire life ended there. I had not attacked Lin Hao myself. His greed and repeated decisions had destroyed him, and he alone bore the outcome. The hallway gradually quieted, leaving only the low wandering sounds of infected creatures. After daylight, they dispersed. Wearing protective gear, I opened the door slightly, confirmed the area was safe, and removed the abandoned cutting tools. The harassment, threats, and schemes that had continued for weeks were gone. No one on the top floor attempted to seize my refuge again. I returned inside and stood before the full-height windows, looking across the ruined city. The apocalypse had only begun, and danger still filled every direction. But the burden that had haunted me most was gone. My internal space held abundant supplies, and the fortress was strong enough for long-term survival. I examined the cultivation area. Vegetables were growing well, poultry reproduced normally, and a self-sustaining ecological cycle was slowly forming. I could continue making supply runs for rare resources while strengthening the shelter. After 2 days of rest, I planned a longer expedition to a pharmaceutical warehouse on the outskirts. Medicine was one of the most valuable resources in the apocalypse. The larger the reserve, the greater the security. Before leaving, I inspected every system. The doors, windows, cameras, and air filtration all functioned normally. The conflict of the past was over. I no longer needed to spend energy responding to endless manipulation. I could rely on my own strength and search for a lasting path through the fog-covered ruins. The world had collapsed, but I held firmly to my own chance of survival. 3 days later, the fog briefly thinned enough for long-distance travel. I prepared my equipment and placed food, water, and medicine in my backpack while leaving ample room in the spatial inventory for anything I found. After sealing every entrance and confirming the security system, I left through the protected passage. The pharmaceutical distribution park lay nearly 10 kilometers away on the western outskirts. Large neighborhoods along the route had become infected territory, and second-stage creatures appeared frequently. The danger was far greater than within the central district. I moved across rooftops to avoid the main road hordes. Night vision equipment allowed me to inspect the route ahead. Isolated creatures were eliminated from a distance with the crossbow, minimizing noise. Along the way, I encountered a small survivor team supporting one another while searching for resources. One member had a severe fever and urgently needed antibiotics. Their leader saw my equipment and remained at a safe distance. "Do you have anti-inflammatory medicine? We can trade metal, fuel, and repair tools." I observed the group. They protected one another and showed no sign of predatory intent. I exchanged a small amount of antibiotics for a can of gasoline and a complete set of repair tools. The leader thanked me sincerely. "Be careful near the western warehouses. A third-stage mutated animal is said to control the area." Many survivors entered and never returned. I acknowledged the warning and continued. By early afternoon, I reached the medical park. The gate was damaged. Inside the walls, a massive third-stage mutated dog patrolled between the buildings. Its black fur, claws, and jaws made it far more threatening than ordinary infected creatures. It possessed enough intelligence to make a direct fight extremely dangerous. I circled to a damaged section of the rear wall and watched from cover, studying its patrol pattern. After 2 hours, the dog moved to the opposite side of the complex. I climbed through the breach and rushed into the warehouse. Shelves were filled with surgical dressings, emergency medicine, chronic disease treatments, and vaccine materials. I transferred them into my space as quickly as possible. Just before the collection was complete, a low growl came from the entrance. The mutated dog had detected me and returned. I sprinted toward the escape window selected in advance. It chased with terrifying speed and struck at my back. I rolled aside and fired a bolt, delaying it for a moment. Using that opening, I leaped through the window, descended along an exterior pipe, and ran toward the surrounding buildings. The creature pursued for nearly 2 kilometers before I finally lost it. I returned cautiously and reached the penthouse after dark. Once every passage was sealed, I removed my equipment and reviewed the hall. The space now held a major reserve of rare medicine, increasing my long-term security again. From the terrace, I looked over the gray city. Ruins stretched to the horizon, and fog still covered the earth. Civilization would not be rebuilt quickly. Survivors struggled everywhere. Some protected their humanity, while others surrendered to desperation and robbery. Lin Hao's fate was only one of countless tragedies in this world. Greed had blinded him. He rushed to seize an opportunity that did not belong to him and fell into the abyss he created. If he had not taken the pendant by force and had instead spoken honestly with me, the result might have been different. But life offered no second rebirth after the second chance was wasted. I took out the blue crystal pendant he had dropped in the hallway. I had recovered it while clearing the floor after the attack. The crystal still gave off a faint blue sheen, but it contained no special force. I placed it on a storage shelf as a reminder of the past. In my previous life, I possessed nothing, was betrayed by my closest family, and died beneath a mutated beast. After rebirth, I protected the real opportunity and watched the person who betrayed me face the consequences of his own actions. Once revenge was complete, I did not allow hatred to consume the rest of my life. I focused on survival. I established a long-term plan. Conduct regular expeditions for scarce resources, continue strengthening the penthouse fortress, and expand the cultivation area inside my space. Survivors who approached with goodwill could trade fairly. Those who attempted violence would meet firm self-defense. I did not know how long the fog disaster would last, whether stronger mutated creatures would appear, or whether humanity would discover a way to clear the atmosphere and rebuild civilization. The future remained uncertain and dangerous. But I was no longer afraid. I possessed an immense internal space, an almost impregnable shelter, abundant supplies, thorough preparation, and a mind tempered by death itself. I had everything necessary to face the storms of the apocalypse alone. The fog remained over the ruined city. On the long road ahead, I would move forward steadily, protect the life I had reclaimed, and wait calmly for whatever the future brought.